host, career strategist, and job creator, Sistah Soldier. And you're watching She Vet Inspires, the show where we provide the blueprint for your success. Today, I have with me Tonya Barnett with the Vet Space, and with her is her partner, which is Miss Sherrell Moore-Tucker. They are two women veterans who came together as a team to assist women veterans in being able to really take care of themselves and reduce the stress. So I would like for you to help me welcome them to She Vet Inspires. Hello!
Hey, thank you for having us.
Hi there.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to have the two of you on, and I'm just excited. I happened to come across your information, and I saw the wonderful things that you were doing in the community, and I just felt like I needed to get to know you and to bring exposure to your passion and to your organization to others who are out in the world and are looking to transition and are facing some of the issues of which you ladies address.
Thank you.
I read that you help women to really learn how to cope with stress and manage it and, deplete it by giving them different tips and helping them and guiding them in manageable ways for them to not be stressful. So can you share a little bit about that to me, and what got you involved in this, first of all?
Wow. So like you said, Sherrell and I are both veterans, and we actually were working on our own businesses, and we attended a conference, and then afterwards we both decided we wanted some accountability. So the Vet Space started because Sherrell and I both were working on our businesses together, and we wanted accountability partners. And so we were meeting rather frequently, and in the process of us working on our own businesses, we started talking about our experiences as veterans, primarily that as women veterans. And so in that, we created the Vet Space for one purpose, and then just through us creating a survey to see what veterans' needs are, we pivoted. And in that pivot, we found out that veterans were dealing with PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, MST, which is military sexual trauma, and then other trauma or transitioning. And then other veterans were saying resources, having access to resources in their community. And so we said, hey, we're here for it. We're going through the same exact thing, trying to navigate the VA, the healthcare system, or the benefit system. And we decided we want to be that champion for our fellow veterans as well as our sister veterans. And then in that, we've had our own stress and shed some tears, through that. And so we're like, man, if we're going through it, certainly there's others. And then we started looking at statistics, and the statistics are abysmal as far as women veterans are concerned. And so that's how the Vet Space got started.
Yeah, wow. Well, you mentioned not only women veterans, it's even because we're women veterans, it's easier to really relate and to identify to what we may be experiencing and to help us get through that as well. And so sometimes it can be a challenge to not, include everyone, but we can't include everyone because women vets are unique in their own space. We have a different set of issues that we face. So Sherrell, can you share with me how the two of you met? Because obviously you're Army and she's Air Force. So I know we're here in the metropolitan area of DC and that there are also joint forces around, but how did the two of you meet?
Right, we actually met online. Tonya was looking, I believe, for a yoga teacher for an event. So it was actually through the wellness space. And from there, our relationship blossomed. We ended up being in a group together, a mentorship program, and really began to learn a lot about each other. I learned that she was actually a vet, and I shared my experiences, and from there we were able to really find synergies in both of our experiences, and wanted to really bring it together and be a champion for veterans out there, veterans that look like us. You know, sometimes we can be invisible. Many of us may not have retired. So sometimes you have a disconnect between those that all the retirees hang together and then those that may have done 5 or 10 years and gotten out. getting back into the civilian world, transitioning, and feeling invisible. But there are so many benefits and entitlements and incentives for veterans, especially those that didn't retire, that they kind of like take off, you know, their hat and the uniform, and they leave that life behind. But there are invisible wounds that come up, and there are resources for those, in particular, those veterans that did not retire but still serve their country proudly, that are available to them. And Tonya and I are very passionate about that demographic of veterans. I believe it's Gulf War and beyond era. So sometimes, you know, getting out of the military and you just assimilate to everything else, forgetting that you have education benefits, you have healthcare benefits that you may not be up to date on. That is our goal, to make sure those that serve know exactly what's going on with new laws being passed, new bills being passed that may impact their today.
And that's the thing, just as you mentioned that there are hidden wounds in how vets take off their uniform and their hat, they put it away in the closet. And for most women, we don't identify ourselves as being veterans. We may admit that we served, but if you were to ask, are we a veteran, the answer is no, and that's simply because we don't think of ourselves as vets. I know for me, I was like in awe when somebody told me I was a veteran. And I served 21 years. So for me to serve 21 years and then think that I wasn't a veteran and that only Vietnam, you know, war veterans were considered veterans, that's a myth that has to be removed. You know?
It absolutely does. I think that there is a better understanding that's slowly emerging of what a veteran looks like. A veteran is, most people will consider a male. They wouldn't bat an eye. Oh, you served, or you may be a white male. But when you happen to be maybe young African-American female, Tonya and I get it all the time. You're a veteran? What? You know, the people say, oh, they understand if you were a military spouse. That is something that's more comfortable with people, but sometimes people don't realize that they kind of have these biases even within themselves, that when you say, no, I served, really? Where? You know, they're almost caught off guard. And there are so many of us out there. There are so many women that have served 5, 6, 10 years that have gotten back out in the working community. They're working with invisible wounds. They have assimilated to civilian culture, but still are not aware of the resources that may be available to them at low to no cost. And we really want to spread the word and champion what a veteran really looks like, and change the dynamic of that.
So how are you changing the dynamic of that?
Things like this with the show.
Showing our faces. Thank you. And the other thing too with that is letting veterans know that we're here. So one of our 6-point plan is legislative advocacy. So letting our elected officials know that we are here and that we're championing for our women veterans. So we've had an opportunity to meet with some of our elected officials. We've been to the Maryland State House for Women's Legislative Day. So we've had an opportunity to testify in front of the legislative committee there to say these are some of the needs of women veterans in the state of Maryland. So these are other ways of letting people know this is what we look like. You know, again, like Sherrell said, we get it all the time. You guys don't look like veterans. And we're like, well, what does a veteran look like?
What does he look like?
Or if you say, hey, I have PTSD, then the next response is, well, you didn't serve in war or combat, but there's other ways to come down with PTSD. You know, you have experienced a traumatic work environment or whatever that is, whatever that may look like. And women are 2 times as likely to develop PTSD than men. And so that's something that we're also trying to get out and let women know, hey, we are a resource for you. We have services available to you that can help you transition not only out of the military, but then assimilate into the civilian world. And as you're doing that, here's a way to reduce that stress. Here's a way that you can manage a household. So whether you're a single woman or whether you're a mom with 3 kids, if your spouse is still in the military and you're not, because we just recently saw that there was a woman who was given her own command, and then her husband was given a command of a totally different base.
Oh my
so
goodness.
you have, you know, a married couple,
Yeah.
2 commands. What does
Yeah,
I'm
what does
sure
that
this
look
woman
like?
is going to have post-traumatic stress, you know,
Yeah.
being separated from her husband. I mean,
Yeah.
congrats for her on her promotion, but what is that going to look like for her and her family?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are the things that women, and we signed up for this, and yes, we did. So that's the other thing, getting that blowback from people that said, well, you signed up for this, so you knew what
Yeah.
you were getting.
Right.
But again, now how do we handle what we signed up for?
Exactly.
And
You know-
that's where the ball has been dropped.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you just you eluded on an important part, is we signed up for it, but at the same token, we're expected to deal with things on a normal level.
Exactly.
And when we start to show something different, then now it's a problem.
Right.
We
Right.
can't finish our job, or we can't do our job right. When in all reality, there needs to be some things in play. I know oftentimes the married couples program is in play to help service members be within the 100-mile
Of each
radius, but that doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't always work. So when you have 2 families that are separated from one another, a family that has children and one spouse is away from the other, then that adds additional stress. And we need to have spaces that we can kind of, you know, vent and share without feeling like we're being a bother.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And even on jobs, this is something, I'm actually taking a class right now through NAMI called Homefront. And what we're finding is, and my husband experienced this, when he went to go talk to a therapist, because he had a top secret clearance at the time, he wasn't even allowed to see a therapist because they didn't want his clearance revoked.
Right.
So now you have, here's someone saying, hey, I need some assistance, but your job, your military job is saying, no, we're not going to send you to a therapist because we need you to work this job, and we can't let you lose your clearance.
Right.
So now you have individuals who are saying, I need help,
Yeah.
but your job is saying the mission is more important than your
Right.
mental health.
Yeah.
Right.
So how many women are we turning out who now you're expecting them to function normally as a wife, as a mother, as a single person in society? And I just saw today that women veterans are 250 times more likely to commit suicide than their civilian counterparts. So to tell me that, well, you signed up for this, but you don't offer any resources, I'm cool with, I've signed up for this, but then allow me to go to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you get that in the civilian world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
You get
just
EAP and
it's
all
just
these
taking
other
care of-
services.
It's taking care of the individual, and I think that it would help us have a stronger force if we were to be able to allow
Absolutely.
our service members who are active duty without keeping them to where they feel like they can't share
Right.
what's internally going on.
There has to be an evolution. There has to be change, and with the armed forces, the change is coming, but it's been slow. But I believe that there are people that know that change needs to happen. It's no longer just, this is the cost of the mission. We're talking
Yeah.
about humanity. We're talking
Yeah.
about people. So when people go through things, whether they are subjected to direct trauma, casualties of war, or loss of life, and we know that's what we sign up for, there is still the cost of it. So what are we going to do to be able to restore those people
Yeah.
that sacrificed their life for this country? They
Yeah.
may not have died, but there's lots of invisible wounds and things that people have lost. They lost a sense of faith. They question their morality, maybe when they're giving certain
moral
orders,
wounds.
the
Yeah.
moral wounds. And so Tonya and I believe is very important with the vet space. We keep very close ties with the community, because this is the thing. Veterans sometimes already feel segregated. So they have to be integrated back into a community where people kind of have an understanding, or at least they're open to hear what the stories are or what those experiences are.
Yeah.
And so we think it's very important that, you know, the vet centers, the veteran hospitals are great, but being able to create community partnership is also very important for us as well, because those community members can help in the healing process of veterans that are right there in the community.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that leads to community plays such a big part
It
in it,
does.
and I think that collectively, if we had programs like yours in place, you know, throughout many of the communities, then veterans would be able to reintegrate and feel like they belong, like they are a part of the community, and they will be able to give back. Yeah. So with that, we're going to take a break. You're watching She Vet Inspires, and I'm your host, career strategist and job creator, Sistah Soldier. We'll be right back. She Vet Inspires has partnered with America's Heroes Group to create a platform for your voice, announcing She Voices, a medium for women who served in the military to share their thoughts, concerns, and creative flow through television, radio, and print. Connect with the community of women and providers who stand for your pursuit of happiness and finding your voice. You're watching She Vet Inspires with Sistah Soldier, and I have two guests here with me, Miss Tonya Barnett and Miss Sherrell Moore-Tucker. And we are talking about the vet space. So you mentioned that your organization covers camaraderie, commitment. These are some of your values, and community. Can you tell me a little bit more about what drives you to do what you do in those particular areas, and what does that mean? Camaraderie, commitment, and community.
Well, definitely community, and we talked about that a little bit before the break, is making sure that the veteran feels like that they're a part of the community. I feel like when veterans get out, like on my street, we have several military families, and you see them, they get in their car, out the car, in their car, out the car, and they're not talking to anybody. You know?
Yes.
And so I think about it all the time, and I may even be guilty, you know, of not stopping and saying, hey, you know, how you, and you see them with the little kids, and that was, you know, us a long time ago. But taking that moment to say, hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
You know, just taking that moment and letting them know that we see them.
So basically getting involved. Yeah. Not in a nosy way, but in a caring way. It's just to say hi, because as you mentioned, I've said this for years, that we have our own little bubble. And it's because we have, we've had our own community for the longest, whereas on an installation, we don't go outside of the base pretty much. And if we do go to the grocery store or something of that nature, we're just speaking to that cashier. And it's only to purchase what we're purchasing. It's not a casual conversation. And then we go right back to our homes, right back to our own neighborhoods, whether it be on base or in civilian community, and more likely that's still surrounded by military. And we go in our homes, and that's it. And to work we go, you know? So we don't have a lot of involvement. So when you say that, I clearly understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you'd be surprised at how many military families are in your neighborhood or on your block if you would just ask. And I find that when I got out, one of the hubs where you did tend to find a lot of military people that would talk would be the gym. Now, it's not to say that everybody's hanging out at the gym, but that's where I tended to meet other people that had served, still kind of being in that regimen of working out. And so we want to be able to expand beyond the gym, because it's great to have physical fitness, but Tonya and I are very passionate about veterans that are dealing with invisible wounds and feeling alone, and mindfulness, yoga, meditation, and other forms of mindfulness are great modalities for that. So we want to be able to have people to expand beyond the gym and find a place of healing and understanding.
Yeah, so speak more to the camaraderie piece, and is that alluding to your programs, the programs that you've designed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the camaraderie part, that is that part. So when they do participate in, we had a program this past summer, and see the veterans talking. So whether it was a Gulf War vet or a Vietnam War vet, there was that immediate connection. And so you saw someone pushing someone's wheelchair, and it didn't matter when they served or what have you, that camaraderie was there. So providing that type of camaraderie, because the minute, you know, someone realizes you were a veteran and you served, it's a connection that no one can ever sever. I don't care when you serve. So that's that camaraderie that we want to provide during our events, during our retreats and our workshops and things of that nature. So that's part of one of our values. And then the commitment is our commitment to the veterans to be authentic in everything that we do. And so everything
Relatable.
So that when we're sharing with our veterans, we're sharing from our personal experiences. This isn't stuff that we've heard through the grapevine. You know, I've gone to the Washington D.C. VA. You know, we've gone to the C box and all that. So these are things that we have experienced. These are not things that we've heard. You know, and making sure that when we're talking to veterans, we can really relate to what they're saying. So that's the commitment: being authentic, being transparent. And then if we don't have the answers, letting them know we don't have the answers, but we're committed to connecting you to someone who can help you. And I think that's important. What's happening is that when we get phone calls from veterans, people are dropping the ball because they can't help them. They just drop the ball on them and they don't hear from people anymore. And our thing is, we're not going to allow that to happen. So we have follow-up. Hey, have you heard from this person that we connected you to? Oh, you haven't heard from that person? So we bring that person to account. Hey, so-and-so, we connected you to so-and-so. They haven't heard from you. What are you doing? That's our commitment to our veterans.
That's important because so many times to give a referral, that's your word. And as of one vet to another, we're saying they're going to help me because they understand. So if we give them to someone who doesn't really follow through, then that doesn't not only look, it doesn't look good, but it also says that I'm not really that, you're not important. And that's not the image and the portrayal that you are out to make, that any of us are out to make. So it's important that if someone gives you a referral of a veteran, oftentimes it's because they need it. It's these women here are venturing out to prevent suicide and to reduce the stress of what someone may be experiencing. There are so many veterans, including women and men, who are behind the doors and they're hurting. And so if we have a referral or if we know someone who needs some form of care and you have an answer, please share it by all means because it could save someone's life.
Absolutely.
The numbers are going up and I'm not sure why. They are still saying 20 veterans a day. It's got to be beyond that. And I've heard as much as 100 a day are committing suicide. And that's unacceptable, you know. And when we have the opportunity to be able to do something such as speak up or reach out to the other person or just make a phone call.
Yeah, I think that, when you get out of the military, some people go through a transition program, TAPS, ACAP, they call it all different names. And some people take advantage of that, but it's an overload of information. Sometimes you're getting information that you may not need until months from now or years from now. So sometimes you kind of place that down and you just go right into I need a job mode or I need to go to school, and that's your focus. And we think it's very important for veterans to be aware of what benefits and what resources are available to them. Sometimes when you come out and you're of a particular generation, there are VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations out there that you feel may not be speaking your language. They don't even look like you, right? So we want to make sure that veterans, especially those veterans that served but did not retire, but still serve honorably, know that there are people that look just like them out in the community that are advocating on their behalf.
And have benefits possibly.
And have benefits, right?
Resources
and money that they're leaving on the table just because there's some organizations that have been around for, lots of years. However, they have failed to evolve in dealing with some of the newer issues that veterans are dealing with. Because remember, veterans are getting out of the military and going into the workforce. So we believe there needs to be an important synergy between bringing community and veterans together. Sometimes when you go, when you're in a job situation, people are afraid of veterans coming on a job. Oh, they had PTSD, they were in war, that kind of thing. So there's education that needs to happen on both parts. And there needs to be immersion of it, not separating vets and having all these just separate veteran activities. There has to be a balance. The people in the community need to have a better understanding understanding of PTSD and what it means to live a military lifestyle and
Yeah.
what comes with that.
Yeah.
And then the veterans, I have to also realize now I'm coming off of base and this is a new world for me. And I need to be open to the possibilities of what this looks like and not to isolate myself.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important because blending, emerging back into the community is such a vital part of our survival.
Absolutely.
And continuing
Absolutely.
to survive.
There are so many people that get out of the military at a pretty young age. I served for 5 years. Tonya, how long did you serve?
I served for 4.
For 4 years. My brother served for 10 or 12. So we're not retirees, but there's a chunk of our lives that we went in at 17, 18, I was 23, and you get out and life as a civilian
It's
has
not
changed.
as you know it.
It's not as you
Yeah,
know it.
yeah.
Because you're kind of in this bubble. So it takes time to transition back into something that has changed. I can remember being stationed in Korea for 2 years, and I felt like that chunk of my life was totally different than what my friends and my parents were experiencing. You're in a whole nother world, a whole nother time zone.
Watching your back.
Watching your back.
That becomes the most important piece right there.
So can you imagine you're in a war zone or you are part of the armed forces where, casualties and loss of life is part of your job.
Yeah.
And then you come out of that and people want you to just sit at a desk and work 9 to 5. It's a total mind shift. And we believe that veterans deserve to know what resources are available to them. Mindfulness. If talk therapy isn't something that works for you, there's lots of information that you can go into mindfulness, or you can incorporate talk therapy with yoga classes, IRS meditations to help ease the symptoms of PTSD and stress and the transition of stress along with military sexual trauma. These are modalities that are offered to veterans. However, sometimes it's not offered within their communities. You have to go to a VA medical center maybe to get the free yoga classes or meditation classes. So that's another layer that you have to go through. And Tonya and I are very much looking to have resources right there in the community for veterans at low to no cost to help in the healing of our vets. Our vets served. They serve honorably. They deserve a chance to heal.
Yeah. So with that, you have been watching She Vet Inspires, the show where we provide the blueprint for your success. And our guest today was Miss Tonya Barnett and Miss Sherrell Moore Tucker from the Vet Space. You are listening to Sistah Soldier, and I will talk to you later. Make sure you share this with everyone that you know. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And with that, I'll see you next time. Deuces.